today's World Insight, big push for a diverse Macau economy with the blessings of the Chinese central government. The word and how businesses are doing on top of the booming gaming industry. Witness Macau in Transition, a World Insight special.
The Macau skyline remains the same, but the Macau to be is underway. On 20th anniversary of Macau's return to China, let me take you around the city. Explore Macau's diversified economy, from financial services to tourism and entrepreneurship. See up close Macau's aspirations, cultural diversity, rising infrastructures, and its vibrant younger generation. Macau in transition, only on World Insight. Hello and welcome to Macau in Transition, a special program of World Insight for the 20th anniversary of Macau's return to China. I'm Tian Wei in Macau. Macau's new chief executive was sworn in on Friday. At the ceremony, Chinese President Xi Jinping spelled out the updated principle of one country, two systems, which applies to both Hong Kong and Macau's special administrative regions.
After Hong Kong and Macau returned to the motherland, the governance of the two special administrative regions became entirely China's internal affairs. We don't need meddling by any external forces. The Chinese government and the Chinese people's will is rock solid in safeguarding national sovereignty, security, and development interests. We will by no means allow any external forces to meddle with Hong Kong and Macau's affairs.
The Chinese president also clearly put in words the central government's hope for the Macau SAR administration.
Macau should combine its own situation with our national strategies, seize the opportunities of the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as the Greater Bay Area construction, so that it can give full play to its strengths and become more competitive.
On how Macau is going to implement some of the most important hopes coming from the central government, I'm joined here in the studio by Professor Jin Chen, who's the Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration and also Chair Professor of Accounting and Finance from University of Macau. What a pleasure, Professor Chen, to see you once again in our studio here.
Indeed.
One of the things I want to ask you to begin with is the diversification of the economy. The Chinese president already said very clear this is the most important job of the special administrative region this time, but how?
Macau has the most advanced and successful gaming industry. President Xi rightly pointed that we should leverage the strength of the already very successful gaming industry and also diversified economy. So that means we should not put all eggs in one basket. A very related area is the integrated tourism development, especially to make Macau as a major holiday destination.
So this is going to combine a lot of things. You're going to have the shopping, you're going to have hotels, of course gaming industry, but also at the same time entertainment as well. So a lot of things combined, isn't it?
Exactly, and also that set up a lot of high standard for the development of the related industry. For example, retail industry, event management. Event management has attracted a lot of attention recently, and it has been booming in Macau.
Yes, indeed. As you said, on top of the agenda is the diversification of Macau's economy. So how can it be transformed from a gaming-dominated industry to one with more players? What has the business community done so far in response to the idea? On that, we went to find a real case study. So we are sitting here in a beautiful gondola in the middle of a huge shopping mall with tourists passing by. Talking about the diversification of Macau's economy, this is a great example. Earlier, it only focused on gaming industry, but now there are many different businesses operating at the same time. Hotels, entertainment, meanwhile there's shopping as well as catering businesses. Wow, wow, wow! Bravo! A great moment to enjoy, particularly with my great friend, Massimo.
Welcome.
A Chinese song?
Yes.
I can sing with you.
Yes. 我爱你用托生，我爱你用去陪，我的情也真，我的爱也真，月亮代表我的心。
The shopping area is only one of the sectors of the huge integrated resort. After a fun boat ride, I met the man behind it, Dr. Wilfred Wang, who is the president of Sands China. He tells me exactly how an integrated resort works and what it means for a more diversified economy in Macau. Diversification of the economy here in Macau, very much discussed. I wonder from a business perspective, how is that likely to happen? Timetable.
I think we are already starting to diversify the economy from really gaming focus since the return of Macau to Chinese mainland. We have started the diversification. The gaming operations have now turned into integrated resort operations. And if you look at our operations, only about 4% of our construction area is for gaming. The rest are diversified economy.
But what about revenue?
Revenue-wise, gaming is still dominating, but that's going to continue for a while. But we are also trying to support the SMEs. In our procurement policy, we try to support Macau's SMEs.
But you know, Dr. Wang, gaming industry is so easy to earn money.
Right.
That's just, everybody knows, right? But when it comes to diversification, there's so much challenge. I mean, do you think people would take the difficult road rather than the easy road?
Well, you have to, because it's a concession. So there's only a limited number of operators who has the right to operate gaming. The other people, they have to work on diversification. Government also gives us the policy that we have to participate in the diversification as a condition for granting the concession. So even though it's hard, but we can make it easier by investing more in the hardware and the software. I think we have seen tremendous progress made in diversification in the last 20 years.
Interesting. What do you think about the timetable? I mean, when you do this transition, of course it's good to have a plan. What about the timetable? How do you think the circumstances around Macau changes? What does that mean to you?
The limitation of Macau is the space. Yes. And most of us, for example, we have run out of space. What is welcoming is the development of the Greater Bay Area, like Hengqin. So if we can improve the border crossing and other facilities, it would be possible for us to build like hotels in Hengqin area. And I think this is part of the overall package that Macau can look at in future. Also, the Chinese government has given the sea area to Macau, 85 kilometers. So if there's concrete plan, Macau government can reclaim the land and provide more space for development.
But, you know, on the other hand, there are a lot of policies that need to be in place in order to make all these factors work, right? To you, as a business person here, what do you think is the biggest priority if the government is thinking about what to do next?
I think the government really has to make better use of whatever is here already. And that is, we are now becoming a world tourism center. And therefore, we have first-class hotels. The whole Macau now has 40,000 hotel rooms. So if we have more rooms, and our occupancy is very high. The whole of Macau is over 90%.
I have noticed.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
And so we need more hotel rooms. And we did a study of Las Vegas compared to Macau, and the number of rooms that we have now matches Las Vegas in the 1980s. So there's still a long way to go. So we hope that this improvement in hotel offerings, the convention facilities, closer cooperation with Hengqin for major attractions like gaming park, the leisure parks, and all these things can help.
On the other hand, you talk about the Greater Bay Area. It's a wonderful blueprint, but how to make sure the blueprint is necessarily going to be implemented in every sector, that's going to be a challenge. Systems are different. Rule of law in terms of the way to do it is different. The ways people's mindset different. Educational level different. Many differences if you just look at the three places only. But how to make sure it's going to happen from a business perspective once again?
That's also the attraction.
I know, it's both sides, but as a result of that, there must be challenges for you guys. What do you think might be the best way to do it?
Well, we have to look at the complementarity of this whole Greater Bay development. Every place, every city has to look at its own strength. Macau, still we have to make use of its connection with Europe, with Portuguese-speaking countries. We also want to make use of its attraction as a tourism center. And can we not help the whole Greater Bay Area improve the standard of their services? Because right now Macau has already got very high service standard. And I'm thinking that we could, for example, help in the training of service personnel in the Greater Bay Area. And these are all complementarities.
Looking at the future, there are circumstance changes in the Greater Bay Area. You earlier worked in Hong Kong, and now you work mainly in Macau. What do you make of the uncertainties and the certainties that people can grasp?
I think one certainty is that Macau is going to continue to develop. And economically, Macau is going to prosper with the support of the Chinese government. Also, Macau has got many other areas like e-commerce, smart city initiative, which the government is now trying to introduce. I think that's also going to help in the Greater Bay Area for Macau to be a hub of economic activities.
Dr. Wang, what a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
That's Wilfred Wang, the president of SANS China. I want to come back to our studio discussion with Professor Jin Chen from University of Macau. Of course, integrated resort seems to be already in shape, but that is, how fast will the practice spread around in Macau? Another thing is the featured finance Macau is aspiring to develop. In that area, you are the expert, Professor Chen. Tell me more about some of the most important aspects of featured finance.
Featured finance is a very new and important concept in the finance, in the academic area, actually. In terms of Macau, the most three important elements of featured finance includes wealth management, financial leasing, and renminbi as a settlement instrument.
But which part do you think will be the most urgent part and also connected to leverage the best of Macau so far?
I think all of them are very important. If you ask me, it's difficult to rank. Wealth management is the most needed one in Macau because the relatively rich society, relatively high GDP per capita, that is really important to put the money in a very good use. In addition to that, renminbi's clearing system and settlement means is also very important because that link Macau with all Portuguese-speaking countries.
Right. But there's one thing I want to ask you, really, it's important that Macau is aspiring to develop future finance, as you just said. But how is it likely to, you know, see the other situations in Hong Kong and in Shenzhen? So how is Macau going to be able to shape the features of its most important finance industry?
The three areas I just mentioned are quite distinctive for Macau. It's a clearly complement to what has already been well developed Hong Kong financial market and also Shenzhen financial market. That really reflects the strength of Macau's economy and also really reflect the Macau as a platform for China and the culturally speaking countries.
Also, the Chinese president, Professor Chen, if you listen closely, what he said in the speech about Macau's future is one about Hengqin. Now, for our viewers who do not know what Hengqin is or where Hengqin is, that seems to be an area assigned by the central government. It was earlier a part of Zhuhai and now can be used by Macau, leased to Macau, and to use that land to develop real estate, to develop businesses, to develop innovation, to develop education. So how is Hengqin likely to be a good article, in the words of the Chinese president? What do you think from the local community?
Since this February, government set up a clear development plan for Hengqin and Macau. Since then, both Hengqin government and the Macau government adjust their development strategies. Hengqin has put forward a lot of policies regarding how to improve its investment environment, in particular to attract more Macau people investing in Hengqin. And the Macau side, government realized the limitation in terms of science of technology development in Macau, in terms of limited land. They also try to set up a lot of policies to promote joint projects in science and technology, in Chinese medicine and in tourism.
But you know, Macau was not necessarily known for the development of science and technology, but it seems that this is a new component that the central government and the SAR government want to work on. How would you understand that?
I take the financial development in Macau, for example. That is very much the focus of diversification of Macau's economy. What really happened is that in Hengqin part, they have set up a lot of joint research laboratories, particularly with universities in Macau, like all universities in Macau, in particular University of Macau. We also develop a center in Hengqin area that actually leverage the strength of technology advancement in China already, in mainland China already, and put forward the team together to create some synergy. More importantly is to explore how to apply the IT technologies into financial industry to create some concrete financial products.
There are some very specific so-called innovation that is need to be done in Hengqin, right?
Yes.
That's the idea.
That is actually interpret what do we mean by financial innovations and also financial and also collaborations, industry collaborations, is to bring bridge the gap between the technology and finance industry.
Well, Hengqin is there also an illustration of a Greater Bay Area, you know, how to interact among the different cities and different advantages of the localities among those in the Greater Bay Area. But Greater Bay Area was created in order to promote Belt and Road Initiative as well. Now, Macau is well known as one connecting China and the Portuguese-speaking countries, particularly in the blueprint of Belt and Road. And in that regard, where is Macau going to use its strength and its leverage?
One of the important role of Macau is being a platform to promote trade and investment between China and the Portuguese-speaking country. In that perspective, Macau plays a very important bridging role.
I see.
Through the trade investment activities, Macau can help the mainland Chinese firm going abroad to engage more collaborations with Portuguese-speaking countries, vice
All right.
versa.
About Macau's interaction with Portuguese-speaking economies, I earlier also talked to Francisco Leandro, who is an associate professor and assistant dean in the City University of Macau, who is the author of 3 books on the Belt and Road Initiative and how China would work with Portuguese-speaking countries. Let's listen in. Francisco, what a pleasure to see you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You've been talking about, Portuguese economies linking up to China through Macau, but exactly how? What is the benefit?
We see a huge potential in this relationship between Macau and small island states. The maritime dimension of Belt and Road has put forward new opportunities, especially for states that we never pay attention before.
Like what?
Like São Tomé, Cabo Verde, Timor-Leste. Some of them are coastal states like Guinea-Bissau. So a new variety of opportunities now is on the table.
But many who are not familiar necessarily with these economies might wonder, so what's there? What's there to invest about? What's there to work on?
3 very simple examples. Cabo Verde sits on the extension of Sahel. So everything, all the old infrastructure, all the maritime economy is still to be explored. São Tomé and Príncipe sits on the Gulf of Guinea, one of the most interesting areas in the world for diversity, fishing, oil, natural resources, and almost nothing has been done there. And finally, Timor-Leste is extremely interesting because Timor-Leste sits on the body of water that connects the Indian Ocean with the Pacific Ocean. So can you imagine the diversity that is coming through the national waters, side by side with new resources that just nowadays we have a new agreement between Timor-Leste and Australia. Finally the problem was fixed. So this opens a new wave of opportunities for Macau.
But what's there for Macau, people would ask, because the investment opportunity here is Macau already plenty. So what's there for Macau?
I think Macau, in my perspective, Macau should complement the bilateral action between those sovereign states and China. If you look at the small and medium enterprises, if you look at education, so we have a very strong tourism programs here. These people desperately need skills, and skills is probably human skills is probably one of the areas that Macau can help a lot. But also little and medium investments to create little jobs that create like a snowball to boost the economy itself.
But how much is there for Macau? Because all the industries, particularly gaming industry and other entertainment industry in Macau, doing very well. So why would they look at this kind of investment?
But this could complement what Macau already have. Because Macau already has a lot of resources to support the gaming industry. When we talk about the finance aspect of game industry, when we talk about the education, the creation of skill, the tourism, the management.
You look at the Greater Bay Area, so how is this bigger idea, and the Belt and Road eventually going to be all connected together? That is something we really need to think about right now.
I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges we have ahead. To understand what we need to provide to the Great Bay Area. I think this is the process that just started. We need more time.
As they say.
Yeah, correct.
Exactly.
So we need more time to figure out how can we deliver a positive contribution.
A lot of work to be done. Thank you so much, Francisco.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you. You're still watching Macau in Transition. I'm Tian Wei. With me once again in the studio, Professor Jin Chen. Last point I want to talk to you about is the one country, two systems, and also the last sentence of Chinese President Xi Jinping at the inaugural ceremony of the SAR Chief Executive. He said, no foreign forces should interfere with China's internal affairs, and it won so much a round of applause among the audience. What do you make of that audience reaction, Professor?
I think it is a common belief in the world. Every nation, every country has their own tradition, has their own culture, has their own belief. We should fully respect that. That is an international convention. Everyone should respect that. Each country has their own legal system, has their own regulations. How to apply to different part of the country, different region of the country, is really should be decided by its own government.
And what makes you think the newly coming into the office administration will be able to do a good job this time for the next few years?
People put a lot of hope on the new government, try to succeed what has been already achieved by the previous two governments, especially the two chief executives. As President Xi said, they have made a lot of contributions to make Macau develop in this stage, very stable, very good shape. People hope the new government can follow the footpath and also improve the government working efficiencies. President Xi also put that hope on this.
Thank you so much, Professor Jin Chen from University of Macau. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're watching World Insight. Welcome back. You're still watching Macau in Transition, a special program of World Insight. As we wrap up our reporting here in the Macau Special Administrative Region, let's take a look back at some memorable conversations we've had with various people from different walks of life who have witnessed and contributed to the region's transition in their own ways since Macau's return to the motherland 20 years ago. It's wonderful to see and meet witness of history.
Well, in the last 35 years, I follow very close the relations between China and Portugal. I was very much involved in the negotiations of the future of Macau when China and Portugal negotiate in '86 the joint declaration. And I was here in Beijing for the ceremony of the signature in April '87. And I still remember I was with the Prime Minister of Portugal in the long meeting, 2 hours, with Mr. Deng Xiaoping.
You were working as a young consultant for the Prime Minister and the Portuguese government at that time.
I was the Foreign Affairs Advisor of the Prime Minister.
Exactly. So tell me more about the inside stories.
Several members of the Chinese government visit Lisbon at that time, and the Portuguese came to Beijing, and we managed to, in parallel, negotiate several things. For instance, the transitional period of 10 years, the land system, the financial system, which banks from Portugal and for China could have the power to print money for Macau, for the Pataka who exists today. So we split in several points the negotiations, and we deal it in parallel system.
Very efficient.
It was, as far as I was told by my Chinese friends, was easier for the Chinese part to negotiate with Portugal than to negotiate with the United Kingdom.
That's for sure. That's for sure. But which part do you think you remember the most?
Probably a more difficult part was to respect the one country, two systems in economic issues. I'm going to give you an example.
Yes, please.
The land, Macau is very small territory. It's a small territory, 20 square kilometers, a peninsula and 2 islands. Land is very expensive in Macau. So we need to find solutions with our Chinese friends how to deal with the problems of the land during the transitional period in order to allow the new administration in Macau to control the situation after '99. And this, we create a special working group on lands, who work very well during all the 9 years of the transitional period. and was a successful one. But at the beginning, it was necessary to adjust positions on the Chinese ideology and with the capitalistic rules of Macau before.
At the time when you were meeting with Deng Xiaoping, it was after the successful resolve of the Hong Kong issue.
That's right.
What was it like for Portugal at that time to look at how Hong Kong was resolved between China and Britain? And how much aspiration did it provide your side with the solutions about Macau?
Of course, the joint declaration that China signed with the UK, United Kingdom, was some kind of reference for our diplomatic talks with China. But I believe that thanks to the wisdom of the Chinese government and to the work of the Portuguese government, we have a better agreement from Macau than the agreement for Hong Kong.
What do you mean?
For instance, the development of Macau is reflects this agreement. The fact that there is a lot of inhabitants of Macau who can use Portuguese passports, for instance, and the Chinese government allowed them, and everybody is very happy. And the political and social and economic life of Macau is much more quiet than Hong Kong. Especially nowadays, you can see that Macau is an example of development and of political and social stability.
Mr. Minister, many have been asking questions and curious about one country, two systems, this very special arrangement from the very beginning, decades ago. Now, of course, with all the latest development, people are even more curious about exactly what it should mean and what it will mean for the future. What do you think?
I believe that it was a good principle, I believe, established for Mr. Deng Xiaoping at this time, and this was essential for the negotiations with the British and with the Portuguese about Hong Kong and then Macau. And I believe it's a very successful formula, because from the 80s until today, it will apply in these two special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau. And I think this could be an excellent example for other Chinese people who look at the mainland with this trust that these principles of one country, two systems applied both in Hong Kong and Macau.
Before you go, I'd love to ask one question.
Yes.
As a witness to history back in the 1980s, and also as a witness later of Macau's development, and certainly the changes we're seeing today in our world, including this region, what do you make of this example of Macau worked out so far? What do you think will be the biggest takeaway about this?
Well, I think the example of progress, development, and stability of Macau could be an example for other regions. And I believe that neighbors must look to this situation with a positive one and contribute to development, to the happiness of the people, and especially this could be important for China, because China can present always Macau as a successful example.
Macau has been talking about jumping on that fast train of China's economic growth. So over the past 2 decades, how is Macau doing from your perspective?
So talking about the financial aspect, actually on average, GDP growth is 7.6%, I mean, from since the 1999 to 2008. So from these amazing figures, you can more or less have a roughly idea how's the overall result of Macau in this area.
So you are on the fast train, no doubt about that.
Yes, no doubt about that. In particular, we used to mention about our fiscal reserve. The amount now is rich among in the first quarter of the 2019, it reached around what we call $70,000. It's almost what we call about 6 times of what we call the budget government expenditure for this year.
Good news. Congratulations for the important basis that you have built financially for Macau. But the question now is, Macau needs restructuring of its economy, and it's been trying to do that for quite some years. The world's economy, though, is not doing necessarily well. What does that mean for the economy of Macau?
We have been thinking, also with the support of the central government. As you may know, the name of the Macau has been firstly put in what we call the 13 5-year plans. You can find the name of Macau there. And in that paper, it's also mentioned about the role should be played by Macau that we call the one center and one platform. The platform is world center of tourism and leisure. That's what one center, and one platform that we will call the financial services platform between the China and Portuguese-speaking countries. So, and in particular, we also mentioned about whether the finance will be one of the areas that to be developed. So that is the reason why we have also very much concern about how to diversify our economy.
Portuguese-speaking countries is an important platform. So how would you tap into this very diverse group? That's probably an interesting question, isn't it?
As you may know, the Portuguese-speaking country altogether, there are 8 countries. As most of people will know about the one in Europe, Portugal in Europe, then the South America is Brazil, and actually there are 5 countries in Africa, and the one small one, the Timor-Leste. Putting this together, you're very correct, because in terms of economy, they are very diverse.
Yes.
But what is our core traditional advantage or the niche in this area? The languages, so number 1, so the Portuguese is still one of our 2 official languages. And then we have what we call the one country, 2 systems.
Yes.
And then we have the similar law and the very similar law and regulations and very similar administrative structures. So that of some key advantage for us.
But it's easier said than done, isn't it? Particularly when you have such a broad mechanism such as the Belt and Road Initiative, and many of these Portuguese-speaking countries, even Portugal included, is on this platform. So Macau does have a historical opportunity, but it's really depending on whether you are catching it on time or not. On that, do you think there is urgency back in Macau about it?
The Macau government has been doing a lot of jobs since a couple of years ago. The future financial industry or future financial services is one of our pillars that we are going to develop. So financial leasing is one of our core elements that we're going to promote. Another one is the renminbi settlement business. That means the settlement business between the China and Portuguese-speaking countries. Another part is the wealth management. So that's the 3 areas, elements that we have been developing.
What about that renminbi settlement issue?
Because the Macau, we have what we call the clearing bank. As a matter of fact, it's the Bank of China. And in order to, with the blessing of the approval of the People's Bank of China, in 2015, this settlement bank is allowed to establish what we call the banking relation or the bank agent banks with the banks in Portuguese-speaking countries. Up to this moment, there are around 30 banks that have been established this kind of the relation with the settlement banks.
The other thing is, where is the potential of Macau? Particularly how the government of Macau, including your branch of the government, is talking to the public.
Yes, what I can say for the government itself, as the government is quite rich.
Yes, 6 times, I remember that.
Yes, but how to make sure that our locals can enjoy this kind of such successful results. So what we used to call livelihood finance. That means we try to promote, we try to find what's the most painful point for the locals.
What is the most painful point?
They always complain about the Macau government, about the payment medium. That means we don't have the WeChat, we don't have the Alipay. That's one of the two very painful lessons we learned. But we have done a lot. As a matter of fact, some of the achievements have been made. Another, we are concerned a lot about the customer protections.
Yes.
We have to also make a lot of what we call not infrastructure, a lot of the new regime, like arbitrations, this kind of the arrangement to make the people feel that they can enjoy the results of the economy.
Before we go, final question for you.
Okay.
December 20th, we all know, 20th anniversary. Now, I know you've been working in the Monetary Authority of Macau for 2 decades, right?
Over 2 decades.
Over 2 decades. So this must be a very reflective moment for you, Wilson, personally,
yes,
as well. How do you see that you're serving the government for 2 decades and the role that you have taken?
Just to work hard for ourselves, because we are not just working for Macau. We are working for the locals. We want to enjoy the fast tracks of you always keep mentioning about the China fast-growing economy. So in the case of Macau, I'm sure that not just the financial sector, even the others, they are going to devote their efforts and they're going to embrace the challenge. I'm sure that they have very good futures.
Okay, that is all the time we have for today. A special program celebrating 20th anniversary of Macau's return to China. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of my team here in Macau and back in Beijing, thank you for watching, and bye for now from Macau.